Hi everyone, today is May 11th, 2019, and this is the Duel Assessment, your podcast for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. My name is Green Ranger, and we've got a huge week in Duel World. In terms of esports, Duel Links meta held their tournaments, and I guess the influx of new cards from the structure decks and the box, the latest box, and also the nerf to Six Samurais, kind of set the tone for a new shakeup. There are new Tier 1 decks. Not surprising. If you've played the latter, you know the differences. We're not really living in the Six Samurai world anymore. We're living in the Neos world and Blue Eyes world. So I'm going to talk about all the latest decks that people are playing. I'm sure, as I said, you've seen these in the competitive ladder. And if you haven't, some good ideas to build on if you want to play those decks. In terms of PvE, a lot of new things going on this week. Duel Tournament. Duel Tournament, of course, opened up Lumis and Umbra, and with them, of course, a little celebration of new characters, new skills, new cards, and of course, all those gems that we want. And talking of tag duels, I'm going to talk about the question of the week, the potential for tag duels in Duel Links. We have evidence that tag duels are going to come to Duel Links, just the scope of it will be discussed. Solemn Odion's also here, so he has a bunch of new cards, which are probably, they could see some competitive play, so they're not useless cards. And some other things to talk about, and of course, Doug is here. Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck Talk. Doug Dimmadule brings a deck that combines the Light Ruler, the Atmosphere, and For Hire, so you can check him out later in the episode. Okay, so as for me in Duel World this week, I hit Legend 1 with a different deck. I was playing Six Samurais, and I switched over to Noble Knights, and I went back to Six Samurais just to finally hit Legend. And this deck is a little different in that it runs Arcana Force EX, the Light Roller, and that's one of Arcana's cards Sartorius' cards, where you would send 3 monsters to the graveyard, and special summon this 4,000, and you would flip a coin, where the tails is a lot better than the heads, but that card actually did show up quite a bit in some of the victories. Six Samurais are hard countered now. Even in the mirror, they know how to play it. Everyone knows how to play against Six Samurais. Neos decks do really well against it. So having that extra twist did win me a few games. It got me a Legend 1, but in Legend 1, things are completely different. I feel Platinum and Legend 1, there's a huge demarcation in terms of the decks played. And you've got a lot of the new decks, the Neos engine decks, Blue Eyes decks, which, frankly, when I hit Legend 1, I did not even know what the Blue Eyes deck was. I knew they had the new card, but I didn't really know, the extra Cosmo Brains and things like that to deal with. So, a lot of tough sledding for me in Legend right now. I actually switched over back to Noble Knights, because the Noble Knights deck I use runs Sealed Tombs. Sealed Tombs seems like the skill to use in Legend, because every deck is doing some graveyard thing. Unless you're running a Cancer deck, you don't really care about that, but Blue Eyes decks, they have so many ways of bringing back their dragons from the graveyard. White Stone of Legend, of course, works there. Not White Stone of Legend, White Stone of Ancients, the new card. And Six Samurais use the graveyards with Fuma. And Anishi banishes 2 from the graveyard to bounce, so that's a very key play for them. And Neos, of course. Neos, protection from the graveyard. The Neos engine is completely graveyard. All of the monsters they use, AD Changer, Bacon Saver, anything like that, they rely on the graveyard. So Sealed Tombs is definitely a skill to use. I would try to, no matter what deck you're playing, maybe Kawaki Meru or something, you try to fit that skill in, because that will win you games in Legend right now, and you can hit an easy King of Games just by switching over to Sealed Tombs. So Noble Knights might not be the best call, but really, they nerfed all my decks. Like, they hit, they nerfed my Six Samurais, and then I didn't buy the other cards that are Tier 1 right now, so I'm going to have to get by. I do not have enough cards to play Kawaki Meru, for example, so I'll see where I can get with the Six Samurai deck and also Noble Knights. Maybe Noble Knights are the way to go. In terms of esports this week, as I mentioned, Duel Links Meta held a few events. Last week they held the MCS 18, and this is what the first downfall is came for Six Samurais. They were already demoted to Tier 1 from Tier 0, and this kind of set the tone for them to fall even more. And even so, people didn't really bring, in this community, didn't really bring Six Samurai, so they weren't really tested. 39 Neos decks were brought, 25 Blue Eyes, 22 Kawaki Meru, 10 Amazons, 10 Ancient Gears, then 8 Six Samurai, so not a lot of... it wasn't really tested. I guess people saw a horrible matchup here. And the top 32 Neos represented 1/3 of the decks. So let's talk about the top 4 decks. The link here to Duel Links Meta shows you all the decks in the top 16. First place K, Sealed Tombs, Blue Eyes. So this is the new Blue Eyes deck. Just to run over the cards, 2 times Snipe Hunter, 3 times Sphere Kuriboh, 3 times the White Stone of Ancients, 2 times Dragon Spirit of White, 2 times Dawn Knight, 2 times Cosmo Brain, 3 times Blue Eyes White Dragon, 2 times Silver Cry, 2 times Treacherous Trap Hole. And you've got a synchro deck here. A sideboard, Stardust, Armadides, Azure Eyes Silver Dragon, 2 Gigantic Castles, 1 Mistbird Colossus. Side deck, Parry Knights, 3 Skullmeister, 1 Shinzeng Hu. So, it's all graveyard stuff. The Snipe Hunter just ditches a bunch of stuff. You want to ditch the White Stone of Ancients so you could, use its ability. Dawn Knight is another card that just came back. It's been around since Resonance of Contrast. So that's another card that they're using. So this is one way to build it. They are running the 2 Cosmo Brains. That's something I noticed a lot. Of course, Silver's Cry is a very core card for that deck too. Second place, Sun Sun. Kaiba Corp Bling. Sun Sun is reigning world champ, if I'm not mistaken. And this is a Kaiba Corp Bling Neos deck. And Neos decks are all a toolbox. Neos is the engine, so there's the 2 Elemental Hero Neos and 3 Neos Fusion and a Miracle Fusion, so that's the Neos engine. The other cards you see a lot are Lava Golems. There's 2 of them here. 3 Sphere Kuribohs. Bacon Saver, AD Changer, those kind of just get dumped into the graveyard, so with Neos Fusions you can use their graveyard abilities. And then you have to get your anti-Six Samurai card. So it's 3 Gale Lizards. This is a card that's been around since Chaotic Compliance, so it's a really old card. You basically bounce, it's a flip effect bounce. And 1 Cypher Soldier, 2 Szank. So Szank is another card that flips, and you send the Shen into the graveyard without destroying it. So also Econ and Treacherous Trap Hole as the semi-limited requirement to put those 2 good cards in the deck. Never a bad idea. Side extra deck, Nova Master, Shining, 3 Brave Neos, 1 Gaia. The sideboard also has 3 Cosmic Cyclones if they are needed. Yeah, this is Neos. It's an engine and a lot of utility cards and a lot of anti Six Samurai cards here too. Another. This is the second variant of Neos. It's the Steel Swarm variant. Rushis with Destiny Draw Steel Swarm Neos, and it's basically replacing Szank with stronger monsters. So you still have the engine of 2 Neos, 1 Miracle Fusion, 3 Neos Fusions. But you've got the Steel Storm Scout here, and that's a monster that, if it's in the graveyard, it comes back, and then it counts as 2 summons. So that works for Steel Swarm Girastag, and Girastag came from the last box, and it sends a card to the graveyard. So it sends probably Shen into the graveyard, and then you gain 1,000 life points. So that basically replaces Szank, and it's a 2600 0 guy. So 0 defense isn't really anything, but the attack is pretty good. Otherwise, you've got the same cards: Bacon Saver, AD Changer, Gale Lizards, Sphere Kuribohs, and Lava Golem. So, and you could play around with the extra deck too. This one runs Elemental Hero Escuridao, so that's a new card, and Elemental Hero Eos Knight. So, basically, whatever monsters you use precipitate what goes into the extra deck. Like, let's say you're running Glyph the Phantom Bird. That's a wind monster. You would run the Great Tornado, Elemental Hero Great Tornado. So it depends what's in your deck and how that you build your extra deck. Third place, Dat with Switcheroo Neos. This is another Neos deck. Back with the Sazanks instead of the Steel Swarm engine. Not too much to note about this deck except it does run Miracle Contact. And Miracle Contact is a Neos card that you don't see too often. This is the first one in the top 4 that we see. But it's just more consistency. It recycles. And of course you could special summon you could fuse your monsters. So those are the top 4 of Duel Links Meta Championship Series 18. Duel Links Meta Weekly 71 happened this week. And this is, the post-shakeup decks. And they're really chaotic here. They've got 6 Samurais didn't even crack the top 4. You've got some really old decks that are kind of reborn. So, and also the new skills with Lumis and Umbra. So, let's go over these decks. First place, Minato. Destiny draw Jinzo Neos. So, Neos, you got your 2 Neos, 1 Miracle Fusion, 1 Miracle Contact, 3 Neos Fusions. But you do have 1 Jinzo. And I think it's a response to 6 Samurais. 6 Samurais were a deck that didn't rely on trap cards. They did have Treacherous. Treacherous is banned, by the way, in these tournaments. With 6 Samurai because they're semi-limited. But some decks ran Duel Wield at first, and then that card kind of fell out. So Jinzo might be a response to fewer 6 Samurais. So, once 6 Samurais are gone, decks are running trap cards, so that's why Jinzo's back. Some common cards that aren't seen in this deck are Gale Lizard and AD Changer. It runs 3 Wall of Ds, though, which is interesting. Wall of D is always a good card. It's a card you see a lot on the ladder. And it's the card you try to avoid, of course, if you've got a full board of monsters. And Jinzo does counter Wall of D, so maybe it's an anticipation of Wall of D coming back. This side deck does have Light Imprisoning Mirror, which negates all light monster effects activated on the field or graveyard. I think that's a response to Blue Eyes decks, since they're all light monsters. So, one of Lumis and Umbra card seeing play right away. Speaking of Lumis and Umbra, Ash Blossom, second place, brought a Light and Dark Silent Swordsman D hero deck. So, you're combining a Light and a Dark archetype. So, you've got your 1 Silent Swordsman level 7 and 2 of the regular Silent Swordsman level 4s. And then you've got your Destiny heroes. 3 Deciders, 1 Celestial, 3 Drill Darks, 3 Mass Change. And then, the other deck. This deck does run Wall of Ds, 3 Wall of Ds again, so that's another card we're seeing. And most interestingly, this deck runs Skill Prisoner. It's a trap card from Absolute Inferno, so you may not remember it, but it basically, you target 1 card you control, any monster effect that targets this card is negated, and when it's in the graveyard, you can banish it and do the same thing. So, pretty good card for the Anki, because Anki is a direct attacker, and it can't get targeted, so that's what the point is. Third place, Scrocky, Destiny draw UA. So this deck is a UA deck. Not too different from the old UAs we saw in the past, but does run 3 copies of Parry Knights. And Parry Knights is a card I saw a lot in the ladder, and I didn't know why. It's a very distinctive card. I remember it when going over Warriors Unite, and I thought it would see play. It seemed too good, like to cheat out of 2300, and it is seeing play. It's crazy. It's kind of, I don't know. Maybe it was some streamer played it, but it's seeing play now, so it's pretty good. It's a big body, not big, but like medium size, 2300, 2100, and helps ramp too. So you're always gonna be taking damage. So I guess it's a response to the 1-turn kill meta not being as big. Games are a little more grindy now, so maybe that's why Parry Knights is there. I'm not really sure. And finally, third place, Surf with Switcheroo Neos. This is the Neos build that doesn't run Steel Swarm, so Lava Golem, Gale Lizard, Sazank, Sirkribo, Bacon Saver, AD Changer, you got your Neos package, Cosmic Cyclone, Econ, and Treacherous. So. And also, notably, this side deck has an Ally of Justice Cycle Reader. This is a card that's seeing play as one of the Neos dump into the graveyard cards, but this card lets you discard it to the graveyard and you target 2 light monsters in your opponent's graveyard and you banish them. So this is an anti-Blue Eyes card again. So also some splash, I guess, to AD Changer too, since AD Changer is a light card as well. As a result of the tournament unfolded, Duel Links meta has completely, changed the tier list, obviously. So 6 Samurais were previously that tier 0 deck. They're gone. They've been banished to tier 3. In tier 1, you've got Blue Eyes and Neos. Neos remains there, but Blue Eyes, thanks to the White Stone of Ancients, has come to the top. And it's a completely different deck. You're dumping a bunch of stuff into the graveyard, so Snipe Hunter is there. Dawn Knight's there, so a bunch of cards there. Tier 2, you've got Kawaki Miru. They've been bumped down from the tier 1 deck. Still pretty good, but tier 2. 6 Samurais got dumped all the way down tier 3 with Amazoness and Ancient Gears. Not much to say, I guess. Everyone knows how to play against the deck too. That's one of the things that hurts it. And as a player who did play 6 Samurais, I don't really have the full version, so it's going to be tough trying to make it. But it's still a pretty good ladder deck, given all things considered. But it is going to be countered a lot, and everyone is going to go against it. But it's possible the hate shifts over to Blue Eyes and Neos instead. So, I don't know if it has potential in the future to keep going. Of course, the version I play has that Arcana Force EX Light Ruler, so innovating in trying to counter, to play around the counters is the way to go, I think, with 6 Samurais. In this tier list, they added 2 archetypes to high potential, so it's Cyber Darks and Vampires. So they mentioned Cyber Darks do work with Neos. I've seen some of those decks before, and Vampires could be back because of Vampire's Vamp. So Vampire Vamp, of course, steals the big monsters, and then you could just kill them with one hit. So maybe we'll see. We'll see how that goes. They also say that it works with Neos Fusion, so then you destroy something on the field. So pretty good. And Dark Lords have been removed as expected. Dark Lords, they were just a bunch of big guys without playing the back row or anything like that. They couldn't really do that, but they still might be okay in the ladder if you play Hey Trunade or Anti-Magic Arrows or something like that. So Dark Lords could still be fine from the ladder, but they're not really a competitive tournament deck anymore. That is it with PvP. Let's talk about PvE. The main event this week is the Tag Duel tournaments, of course, and I framed my question for the week around it. What is the potential for tag duels in Duel Links? So a lot of this has to do with Lumis and Umbra coming to the game, and I'll go over the skills they have later, but there's a skill that is the Mask of Impregnability, and that is a Tag Duel exclusive skill. So kind of makes you think that Konami is definitely tipping their pitches, if you will, that tag duels are coming to Duel Links. We don't really know the capacity of tag duels. Is it PvE or is it PvP? So we don't really know. So that's what precipitated this question. So there are 4 tiers of answers. It'll be used for tournaments and money. It's going to be a main focus. One of the events that they'll use, or they'll make like a new esports division. They'll have competitive tournaments. Duel Links meta would play tag duels. So this is as high as it gets for competitive esports. It could be a new ladder mode for PvP. So that's a new thing to do with new rewards potentially. A new casual PvE mode. So that's pretty much what's going on right now with this tag duel event. Of course, the tag duel event's not going to stay, but they could have something in the future where you get to mix and match who you play, or they'll have random tag duel roaming duelists or something. I'm not really sure. Or it will never be feasible. So it will never be feasible has to do with a lot of things with disconnections or cheaters or having 4 people just playing together, and what latency issues that would have of people around the world. So those are my 4 tiers of questions. 3% of respondents said it would be it'll reach the highest peak of tournaments and money. 50% said it will be a new ladder mode for PvP. 28% says it will just be a casual mode for PvE, and 19% said it will never be feasible. So I have two people who commented. Eisenhart LTD says, ladder would be awful. Disconnections, people play self-destruct decks, matched with a 30 card deck that has Dark Magician, Blue Eyes, and Hero cards. I can go forever here. Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a challenge to see how they do it. Of course, we only have one-on-one matches now. They do have the duel rooms, but I'm not sure what capacity they have for doing it in a PvP matter. And of course, when you're laddering, you have to rely on your opponent, so it's going to be even harder to hit the king of games for these tag duels because you have to rely on your opponent. Of course, you could get lucky and get matches of really good players each time, but I don't think that's possible with the way the ladder system randomizes things. So it may be impossible to even hit king of games ever with a tag duel tournament format, unless you play with whoever you want. Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck Talk, Doug Dimmadule says, I hope it becomes a new ladder mode. I know that many casual players thoroughly enjoy this style of play, and I think it will boost the Duel Links player base. So, yeah, definitely, it should be a mode in some form. I think if they're able to make it work for some PvP format, that would be really good. Of course, they've done the PvE already, so that component is probably coming to the game at least, but seeing if it will go to PvP. And of course, the problem is, if it is a new ladder mode and they do offer gems, that kind of forces everyone to do it. Everyone is just starved for gems, so people who don't want to do the PvP tag duels are forced to do it in a way, so they're going to have to find a balance of how, I guess the rewards would have to be limited, and, we all want more rewards and all, but I think we'll have to temper our expectations if they don't want to force people to play PvP tag duels, if you will. So, we will see. I think the tag duels are definitely going to come to Duel Links because of this Mask of Impregnability skill, so we're going to see how Konami handles it, and of course the community will react one way or the other, so very interesting times. They did tip their pitch about what's going on, and maybe it was intentional, of course, but we'll see what happens with tag duels and Duel Links. Main PvE event this week that precipitated this whole discussion is the Tag Duel Tournament. I think this is the third time they're having this event, and we've got some pretty cool interactions here. I really like the pairings they put together. Pegasus and Crowler, of course, that was pretty good. And it's funny that I lost to them a few times, so I get to see the reaction afterwards. That was pretty funny. Mayan Rex, for example, that was pretty cool. I like how they mix up these characters that would never interact with each other in the anime, so it's pretty cool. And it was really easy to obtain Lumis and Umbra. I think the first time you finished the GX tournament, the Armed Dragon Cup, you get them, so it's really easy to get them. And just 3 playthroughs of each cup is very painless, so I really liked how they did this event. And in terms of the lottery, they have 2 cards that are new. A bunch of the other cards I even have 3 copies of, so it's nice to get a 3rd copy of Starlight Road, for example. But there are 2 new cards to discuss here. First is Red Rising Dragon. It's a Synchro Dragon, level 6. It requires a Fiend Tuner and a Non-Tuner, or one or more Non-Tuners, 2100 attack, 1600 defense. When this is Synchro Summoned, you can target one Resonator in your graveyard, special summon it. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck to turn you activate this effect, except for Dark Dragon Synchro monsters. During your main phase, except the turn that this was sent to the graveyard, banish this card from the graveyard, then target 2 level 1 Resonators in your graveyard, special summon them both. So this is a Synchro monster that just caters to the Resonators. We haven't seen the Resonators see any play yet, but this is just a recycle monster, frankly. It's just, you try to get multiple Resonators out so you could play another Dark Dragon Synchro. It's kind of like Red Dragon Arch themed things. And there's not much to this card, frankly. It's just a recycle card. letting you do multiple synchros per turn that just fits with this archetype. I don't really see his card being competitive at all. Splendid Venus is a level 8 fairy, 2800 attack, 2400 defense. All non-fairy monsters lose 500 attack and defense. The activation and effects of spell traps activated on your side of the field cannot be negated. So, in a way, this counters the counter fairies, but it does fit for that archetype. Activation of effects of spells and traps doesn't happen too often. I think the card that's on everyone's mind is Legendary Secrets. I don't know which one it is. The Synchro and Synchro Monster. That's the main card that's been negating things, and this would counter that, of course. This is a 2 tribute monster, though. It is a 3300 basically, because every non-fairy runs loses 500, so it'll basically be a 3300 if you're doing the math. And it'll get over anything that's over 3000 attack. I mean, anything that has 3000 attack. They're not really fairies nowadays, except for the Arcana Ruler, Arcana Force EX Light Ruler. So, costing 2 tributes would, is a big time liability, but there is an Odion card that fits with this card. You could get it out easier just with that trap card. So, maybe there is potential in some fairy deck, but I don't see it, especially with 6 Samurais going on the wayside. Negation of cards is falling a bit. I guess it also works on the Air Knight Parshaft deck, because that is a counter fairy deck too. So, but they don't lose the 500 attack since they are fairies, so this won't be able to get over a Parshaft anyway. So, tough spot for this card. In terms of Lumis and Umbra, they are here. They've got a bunch of new skills and some cards. The cards are less. There are interesting cards on both sides, frankly. Actually, skills and cards. Let's talk about their skills. Spell Dispel is their first skill. The effect of all spell cards targeted by Mask of Dispel that you control are negated until the end of the next turn. The skill can only be used once per turn and twice per duel. So Mask of Dispel is an R from Ultimate Rising, so it's a really old card. And it basically selects a face-up spell card on the field. The controller takes 500 points of damage each turn. When the selected card is removed from the field, destroy this card. So it's a little burn card on a continuous spell or like a field spell. And this skill lets you negate the ability for a turn or two. And that card never saw any play. It's a burn card, it never saw any play. It's because it's conditional. Your opponent has to play a continuous spell or a continuous field. 6 Samurais do use a lot of continuous spells, but they get rid of the field. They get rid of the card really fast to do something, to draw cards or to play Fuma from the deck. This would be good if there was a really reliant field meta. Vampires were an example of that, but it's too. The cards don't stick around too much for this skill to be worth it, in my opinion. Curse of the Remnant is the next skill. When a monster is equipped with a Mask of Remnants that you control, that monster gains 1000 attack. So Mask of Remnants is a card that's left behind when you play Masked Beast Desgardius. When that card is destroyed, you steal a monster with Mask of Remnants and you equip it. And that monster gains 1000 attack. So it hinges on the Masked Beast Desgardius seeing play. Maybe there are a few skills here that work with Masked Beast Desgardius. Those might be better than Curse of the Remnant. Curse of the Remnant is a bit win more. You have to do the work in getting the Masked Beast out, but once you do, you get a pretty good monster with. I don't know if it's a good monster, but you get a monster with 1000 more attack. So it is in consideration. It's not a horrible skill by any means, but you have to do all the work of getting the Masked Beast out the normal way. Here's that tag duel skill that we talked about. Mask of Impregnability can only be used in tag duels until the end of your opponent's next turn. You take no battle damage. This skill can only be used once per duel. So it's a little stall skill. It has some Holy Guard to it for one turn. Only one turn though. You're kind of stalling your way to draw something. I don't really see this being too useful. Of course, this is just the only tag duel skill we have so far, so it's in a field on its own. We can't really rate it compared to other tag duel skills because there aren't any. This is the first one, so we will see where this goes. This is only interesting in that Konami tipped their pitches and said, tag duels are coming to the game. The next skill is called Masked Tribute. Return one card from your hand to the deck. Then randomly play one Grand Tiki Elder or Melkit the Four-Faced Beast from outside your deck. You cannot summon any monsters other than Masked Beast Asgardius during the turn you activate this skill. The skill can only be used once per turn and twice per duel. So, what happens here is you just send the card from your hand to the deck. So it's basically a cost of a card. And you get one of those monsters out. Typically how this works is you want to play a monster first, then use the skill, and then you get your Masked Beast out. Of course, the problem with Masked Beast Asgardius is it's a card in the deck, not the extra deck, so you have to have it in your hand for this whole thing to work. And you special summon it by sending those monsters to the field, and it's a 3300. That's pretty solid. And of course, you steal a monster. So the problem is you have to hold it, and if you're running 3, there's a chance you hold it. If you're running 3, there's a chance you brick. So this is definitely a good skill for that build around ability. It's just if the Masked Beast is enough. I don't know if it is, but this is one of the skills you would consider using if you are playing Masked Beast Asgardius. The other skill is Mask Exchange. Add one Masked Beast Asgardius from your deck to your hand, then return one Mask of Remnants from your hand to the bottom of the deck. The skill can only be used once per turn and twice per duel. So this does the other part. This gets the Masked Beast into your hand, but does not cheat out the Melkid or the Tiki. So, if Mask Tribute and Mask Exchange were combined, that would be pretty good, because you get your Masked Beast Asgardius out immediately. But they are two different components of the same strategy. You probably could cheat out those cards other ways. There's a card like Unexpected Die, where you could special summon Grand Tiki Elder or Melkid straight from the deck and then do it. So you probably would want to play Mask Exchange and run an Unexpected Die to play Masked Beast Asgardius. And of course, this all hinges on, is Masked Beast Asgardius enough? I want to say no, but it gets over 3,300 monsters, so that's something, I guess. And finally, the most interesting skill by Lumis and Umbra, Light and Dark. Choose one of the following. Return one dark monster from your hand to your deck, then add from your deck to your hand one light monster with the same level and type as the monster you returned. Or, you could return one light monster and do the same thing with a dark monster. This skill can be used once per turn and twice per duel. So, we did see a second place a weekly winner with Silent Swordsman and Destiny Heroes, so they are all level 4 light and dark warriors. So that really worked out well. Of course, they have to be the same type. So not every type has this. They're probably not light and dark beast monsters, but warriors work. Spellcasters probably have equal numbers of lights and darks. Fiends are almost all darks, so that probably won't work for them. So it does limit what types you use. Machines probably have some lights and darks, so this is a very exciting skill because it opens up a lot of cards you normally won't use, and you could just play around and see what you do here. It also opens up the way for chaos strategies. Chaos strategies involve light and darks being in the same deck, so I really like this skill being added to the game. It definitely opens up the whole playbook of cards that are light and dark and the same type. So this is definitely a boon to any deck builder in Duel Links, and it's a very fun skill, and it is competitive too. It got second place in the Meta Weekly, so I really like this skill. We're done talking about the skills of Lumis and Umbra. Let's go over their level up cards. And a lot of these cards are repeats, because They work hand in hand with what Merrick gave you and things like that. So there are a number of repeats here. A lot of these cards we already have, but it's fine for new players who don't have the cards. I don't really mind them giving these monsters because they are their trademark cards. And he gave these cards to us before they even knew these guys were coming to the game. So, over these cards. Grand Tiki Elder and Melkith the Four-Faced Beast. We get these as level-up cards. They're both 1500 attackers. Grand Tiki Elder, frankly, looks cooler, but it has 800 less defense. Melkith has 1200 defense. Grand Tiki Elder has 800. You only use these cards if you're doing the Masked Beast Descartes, because they are required tributes. Otherwise, you wouldn't really play these cards. Of course, I did when I was a TCG player, because I was poor and I only opened booster packs, and I think these guys were from Legacy of Labyrinth of Nightmare, I forget which pack, but I opened packs with these guys. I ran monsters with 1500 attack vanilla because I sucked and it was early and I wasn't competitive. Unga Bunga format. I used these cards in my TCG days. Don't use them in Duel Links unless you're doing a Masked Beast Descartes thing. Alright, that's out of the way. Curse of the Masked Beast is a regular tribute spell. I haven't said tribute spell in so long since Cyber Angels, I guess. But even those Machine Angel ritual cards were much better. This is just a generic ritual spell, and it does nothing. It just gets 8 stars of monsters for the Masked Beast. And it's confusing the Masked Beast and the Masked Beast Descartes. The Masked Beast is just a 3200 vanilla. So you just get 8 stars of tributes. It doesn't matter what monsters they are. With Synchro Summons, you have to care what monsters they are. Ritual Summons back then didn't really care. So 8 stars for just a vanilla 3200. And the Masked Beast, it's not even supported by the new dual skills. The new Lumis and Umbra skills only help out the Descartes. And that's the card you want. You want to play over this regular Masked Beast. It's a vanilla 3200. I don't think it's considered normal, so you can't really use any normal synergy with it. And it does hit over 3000s. That's the only positive of this card. It has 1800 defense, which isn't very good. So there's no way I would play this regular Masked Beast card. Maybe you're playing a ritual skill. Some GX characters have ritual support skills, I believe. But I don't know. This is not worth playing. So, a new card we are getting is Mask of Weakness. And this is just here because it's a mask card. But it's a trap card. Target one attacking monster. That target loses 700 attack until the end of this turn. Not very much utility here. It only gets an attacking monster. So, battle phase only. 700 attack lost. Rather use Wall of D or Mirror Force for it. Not really worth it at all. The next 2 cards are worth it though. This is the Light Imprisoning Mirror, continuous trap card. Negate all light monster effects activated on the field or in the graveyard. So this is seeing play in competitive formats. This is the perfect side deck card. It turns all light monsters into normal monsters basically. And of course the graveyard ability. It shuts down Blue Eyes decks. This is a card you may want to play if you're going for King of Games in the ranked ladder. This is game breaking. And it's a card that they gave us one of. And if you're clamoring for more of these, I don't think that's ever going to happen. Because if you have 3 of these cards in Duel Links, in Hearthstone there was a thing where you made fun of design space memes in cards that limit design space. If this card is too prevalent, cards will never be printed of this caliber because they will never work. Light Imprisoning Mirror does the same thing. If you have 3 of these, what light monsters are you going to bring to Duel Links? So this is a card that they will rightfully keep at 1. And the same goes for the next card that they give too, Shadow Imprisoning Mirror. This does the same thing, continuous trap card, but negate all dark monster effects activated on the field or in the graveyard. So, this shuts down all of the dark monsters, and light and dark are some of the best attributes for monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! So, numerous effects are negated. This hits Bacon Saver and Fuma are in the graveyard right now. And of course, there are a host of other cards that work as well. One card this doesn't hit is Sphere Kribo, because Sphere Kribo is a dark that is activated from the hand. So, doesn't get by Sphere Kribo, so that's a downside. But it hits enough stuff. And also, it's a card that rightfully is put at 1, because that limits what gets put into Duel Links, of course. Mask of Restrict. Level 40 reward, we only get 1 of these. Continuous Trap card. Neither player can tribute cards. This is a card I had in the TCG. You know, grinding through those booster packs. And I got this card. It was really cool. It was a holographic. Super rare. Also, super rare, not ultra rare. It didn't have the gold letters. But, classic stall lockdown card in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's limited at 1. It's less good at Duel Links because you could still special summon. And special summon, some cards send things to the graveyard and then they get another thing out, like the Arcana Force EX. But it does limit a lot of things. Synchro summons I don't think work. I don't know if synchro summons work. That might just still be a special summon. This doesn't get by Neos Fusion though, so Neos Fusion is just a fusion. This prevents all tribute summons, and that's not too important in Duel Links. I feel like synchro summons are hit by this, but I'm not exactly sure. So if this only hits tribute summons, it's not that good. It's a card we could have more of, frankly. But neither player can tribute cards, so it's a classic stall card. And finally, Mask of Darkness. This is another classic card. 2-star Fiend, flip effect, 900 attack, 400 defense. Target 1 trap card in your graveyard, add it to your hand. So, a lot of trap-heavy decks, like Odion, Endless Trap Hell type decks. Generic Trap Tutor. It might see play, I think, because those Odion decks can get quite annoying. And they're effective, too, those trap recycling cards decks. So, this could see play. This could see play for Treacherous Trap Hole, frankly. I mean, you could use Treacherous Trap Hole again. That would be pretty devastating. So, not a bad card at all. That is it with Lumis and Umbra. And now we are going to move on to the next PvE event. PvE event in Solemn Odion. Solemn Odion's here. He's here to train with everyone. There's not much of a narrative in the story, but the cards are useful at least. And you get extra copies of Mystical Beast of Circuit, for example, and the Temple of Kings. So, new card, Statue of Anguish pattern, Continuous Trap, special summon this as an effect monster, a Rock Earth, level 7, 0 attack, 2500 defense. If summoned this way, this card cannot be targeted by an opponent's card effect, while you control another trap card that's a monster. If a card is special summoned from your spell and trap zone to the monster zone, while this is a monster, target 1 card on the field and destroy it. So this is as good as it gets as a trap monster. It's big. It's got 2500 defense. When another trap monster is on the field, you can't target it, so you can't bounce it with Anishi. That's something I tried to do in my last duel. It is removal. Whenever you play one of those trap monsters, this card hard removes something on the field. So it's as good as it gets. It's a core for trap monster decks. You'll run 3 of these, of course. And I think Odion Endless Trap Hell is a good skill for this card. One thing it doesn't do is Paleozoics that come back from the graveyard don't trigger this ability, this hard removal ability. And they come back from the graveyard specifically as those 1200 water monsters. So I don't know if those cards fit, frankly, into this whole trap monster format. You're going to have to run Quantum Cat, Swamp Mirror, First Monarch, Tiki Curse, things like that. Curse, Embodiment of Apophis, things like that. So it's a very good card for this archetype. Another new card, the First Monarch, Continuous Trap. Special summon this as an effect monster as a Fiend, level 6 Dark, 1000 attack, 2400 defense. If summoned this way, you can discard one card, then declare an attribute. This card becomes that attribute and can be treated as 2 tributes for the tribute summon of a monster with the same attribute. If this card was summoned this way, you cannot special summon monsters except for monsters with this card's attribute. So as a reverse split of a Monarch, it has 1,000, 2,400. It's an effigy card, so it counts as 2 tribute fodder. It could work for Egyptian gods too. You count divine, and then it could just cheat out an Egyptian god. It's pretty good. I think it's a pretty good card for decks that are trying to ramp into tribute summons, or as a sturdy card for these trap monsters. And finally, the R card that is here is Grave Protector. It's a level 4 fiend, 0 attack, 2,000 defense. Any monster destroyed by battle is shuffled into the deck instead of going to the graveyard. So 2,000 defense is okay. It was pretty good in the beginning of this game, but now a lot of things hit over it. Of course, 0 attack makes it susceptible to getting hit by Econ and basically a direct attack right there. But it does lock out the graveyard. It's a good counter to Blue Eyes right now. Any deck that resurrects stuff. Of course, Blue Eyes, they could just dump things on their own and not destroy things by battle, so this card probably won't see any play, but, you know, it's a card. It's not the worst, you know, R card that they've given us. That's it for this week in terms of PvE. Jack Atlas has been retired. His events are done. He's been sent to the duel gate where you could farm him indefinitely, or whatever, infinitely. And you could use Yubel decks or Cloudians. I think Cloudians were more fun for me. Yubel's easier, though. So you could just farm him for any card. I personally am missing one of the trap cards that never sees any play, but he's there. So the Turbo Duel event was pretty cool. He had, I think, one of the better events we had in Duel Links. We don't know if Turbo Duels are coming to Duel Links, but they did try it out, so they'll figure that out along with the tag duels, I guess. A little extra thing going on is the Pick a Gift campaign. They're giving us extra copies of old cards. Dice Reroll is a trap card that lets us reroll a dice. We haven't seen Dice see play since Sylvans, and I guess you could do some annoying things with the mushroom, but something you could do for fun is Dark Master Zork. Roll that dice again and blow up the board. Burst Breath is a little board wipe for dragons. It saw a little bit of play. I think I saw it as a sideboard card in Blue Eyes before. I don't think it will see play in this current version of Blue Eyes because it's too good. This is more of a win more card. But you never say never. It's a fine card, you know, just to have extras of in case someone wants to play around with it. Dark Triceratops is just a 2,400 with piercing. Never good enough to see play in dinosaurs. Especially in the banished version, it doesn't fit at all. And finally, Drac Tyrannus. Same thing. Not good enough to see play in dinosaurs. It's a 2 tribute monster. Drax never really made it either. So now it's time for Doug's casual deck of the week. Doug is back. He's gotten into the tag duel spirit by combining a bunch of different archetypes and making it work. This is a deck based on a card I spoke about a lot today, which is Arcana Force EX, the Light Roller. It also has the Atmosphere, and it relies on the Fur Hires being the engine that puts stuff onto the field, so you could get the Light Roller out. So check out his deck of the week right now.
Hey there, this is Doug Dimmadul with another episode of Doug's Casual Deck of the Week. This week I want to do something a little special, dealing with the special summon aspect for a few nice boss monsters. A little while back we got the Arcana Force support from one of the recent events. So I ended up wanting to build a deck around Arcana Force EX, the Light Ruler. You know, if this is the level 10 light monster, fairy, 4,000 attack, 4,000 defense. The only way you could special summon it is by sending 3 monsters you control to the graveyard. So I wanted to build a good deck around this card. So I ended up using Cyber Style. Now the thing about Cyber Style is every time you have a reduction of 1,000 life points or more, as long as you have under 3,000 life points, you can special summon one of those cyber monsters onto the field. Only thing is that you're not allowed to use it for any type of tribute or anything along those lines, unless it's related to a Cyber Dragon type support. But the only way around that, and what actually works, is that you can still use monsters for special summons. So with that being said, Arcana Force EX works really great with Cyber Style because you could load the field with 3 monsters. You could summon one of your regular monsters and then special summon 2 Cyber Dragon, whatever they're called, the Cyber Cores. I forgot the name of the monster. But you load the field up, you got 3 monsters. You could then special summon your Arcana Force EX, the Light Ruler, and have a 4,000 beater on the field immediately. So the other monster that this deck meshes with really well is with the Atmosphere. The Atmosphere is a level 8 winged beast, 1,000 attack, 800 defense. It cannot be normal summoned or sent and must first be special summoned from your hand by banishing 2 monsters you control and 1 monster from your graveyard. Then once per turn you can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls and equip that target to this card. So you can only equip 1 monster at a time using that effect. And then this card gains attack and defense equal to that monster's attack and defense. So if your opponent's playing some pretty hefty monsters, you could do a real good play, snatch them up, and even if they have skills where they can't be destroyed or banished or sent back to the hand or anything along those lines, it doesn't matter because you're just scooping it up and putting it on your side of the field as an equip spell. So it's a really good one. So the other piece that I like to run with this deck is basically the For Hire engine. I run my 3 copies of Beat Bladesman For Hire. It's a 1,200 attack, 500 defense. You can special summon 1 other For Hire from your hand. If a monster that's a For Hire is special summoned to your field while you control this monster, you can then search out a different For Hire from your deck, except another Beat Bladesman For Hire. So this really gets you going, and hopefully you can flood the field with 3 cards that way, or at least 2. I run the 1 copy of Dyna Hero For Hire. You know this one. It's a level 6, 2,500 attack, 1,400 defense. When it's special summon, you could banish cards from your opponent's graveyard up to the number of For Hire monsters you control with different names. This is becoming a really powerful effect because a lot of decks revolve around having different resources in the graveyard. So having a Dyna Hero For Hire on the field and activating its effect to banish different monsters from your opponent's graveyard or different spells and traps, that could come in really good handy. That can come in handy real well with that card. So then I run 2 copies of Seal Strategist For Hire. This allows you to recycle some of your other For Hires out of your graveyard. This is the 1,600 attack, 1,000 defense Beast Warrior monster. When you special summon a For Hire from your hand, except Seal Strategist For Hire, you could target 1 For Hire monster in your graveyard. You could target 1 monster that's a For Hire in your graveyard and add it to your hand. So that allows you to get your Dyna back to your hand if you want to use it again, anything along those lines. And then I run the 2 copies of Donpa. You guys know what this one is. It's when another For Hire monster is special summoned while this card's on the field. You could destroy an opponent's face-up attack or face-up card on their field. And then you get Recon Scout For Hire. I run 2 copies of this one. It's basically the same effect as Donpa, but instead it destroys a face-down card that your opponent controls. So that basically rounds out all the For Hire stuff for my engine that I run. To help activate Cyber Style's effect, I like to run as many copies of Cosmic Cyclone that I can. This is where you pay 1,000 life points and then target 1 spell or trap card on the field and banish it. So I only have 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone, but this deck I think would be optimal if you run 3 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. And there's just a lot of spells and traps out there in the game right now that have additional benefits in the graveyard. So the fact that you're able to use Cosmic Cyclone and banish a spell or trap card makes a huge, huge difference. Then Of course, you want to run those 3 copies of Mayhem for hire. It's a quick play spell where you target 1 for hire in your graveyard and special summon it in defense position. You can only activate this once per turn, so you get some really good combos going. You could at least fill your board with maybe that second card that maybe you could go into, use the Atmosphere, or then make a play for your Arcana Force EX. Either of those two, and if you need an extra monster too, you could activate the Cyber Style skill. And then to round things out, I just run 2 generic trap cards. In this case, I'll run Mirror Wall just because not a lot of people run Mirror Wall anymore, so it's a nice surprise just to kind of have that. And if somebody's trying to swing into my Dyna hero for hire and they have more than 2,500 attack, running into it with Mirror Wall does a good job of reducing the opponent's attack power. So overall, that's the basic strategy. I've been toying around with the idea also of running this deck with Sangan, because the thing about Sangan is that it can search out the Atmosphere because it has less than 1,500 attacks, so you could then get into your play later on. So that may be something where I want to switch this deck up, but overall, I still like the Fur Hire engine, even though that a lot of the cards got limited and semi-limited. I'm not really trying to get into the big plays with Dyna for the most part. The main reason why I'm running the Fur Hire engine is because they do flood the board pretty well to get into those boss monster plays for Arcana Force EX and for the Atmosphere. So this actually has really good synergy. Yeah, it does have the tendency to brick every so often, but as far as casual play goes, this is a deck that I think you'll have a lot of fun with if you give this one a shot. This doesn't require anything in the extra deck, so you don't need to worry about synchros or fusion plays. You can tweak this a little bit and have a chance to make some nice fusion plays or some nice synchro plays, but for higher engine, not really needed for that one. So overall, I think this deck is a lot of fun. I recommend that you try this out if you're playing casual duels or if you're playing some PvE events. This is one that I think you'll just enjoy. It's just a fun deck. It's not something that's going to be very competitive on the ladder. It's definitely not something that's too competitive on the ladder, not in the current meta. But yeah, I definitely recommend you giving this one a shot. So anyway, that's it for Doug's Casual Deck of the Week. I'll see you next time.
All right, thanks, Doug. And you can check out his content, Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck Talk. He has a spot on this podcast every week to talk about a cool new deck. Give him a shout out if you enjoy this content. Any ideas about what decks you want to see, just let us know, and we'll see what we could do. So, in terms of upcoming news, early May, which is, there's not much early May left, but WCS 2019 qualifier celebration, Road to the Worlds campaign. So hopefully that'll be more stuff for us to get before the new cards come out. We're expecting some new Red Eyes things coming out, so we definitely need gems to buy those, so we'll see what happens. Mid-May tabletop RPG Monster World, new cards, new Yami Bakura skill, that should be coming up as our next event. Tour Guide Bingo, more gems for us. More extra copies of cards we don't have 3 of. Mid-May, Mark of the Dark Signer, Dualathon with Infernity cards, so new cards there. We don't know how long our Neos and Blue Eyes meta will stay, so we'll see how these cards shake things up. Late May, the Duel Links World Championship qualifiers happen, the last step before the Grand Championships happen. And finally, Duel Quest, late May. Upcoming events, Duel Room updates, point battles, and search feature improved. So that is it for me and the podcast for this week. Thank you very much for listening. Of course, let us know, comments, suggestions. Let me know on social media. Listen and subscribe to this podcast anywhere. We're on Spotify. A lot of people use Spotify, so we're on there for your convenience. Check out the podcast and more on our website. All this written content is present on the duelassessment.wordpress.com. It's all there. There's a lot of writing that goes into this podcast that you may not be aware of if you're just listening, but there's a lot of writing every week. So these are exhaustive show notes, all on WordPress. You can email me if you want, theduelassessment@gmail.com. Or better yet, find me on Twitter, duel_assessment, or my personal account on Green Ranger CCG. Let me know. Let Doug know what you want to see, what you like, and what you don't like. And I'll just try to keep going. So, there's a lot to do in Duel Links. Have fun. And I will see you next week.